Hey, welcome to the Iron on Iron podcast. My name is Josh, I'm your host, and just a few quick things you need to know before we dive in. We would love it if you could follow us on our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, like, and comment. Spotify, we'd love it if you could jump on and hit that bell notification and follow us there, and also our Instagram account to make sure that you don't miss out on a single thing. And we would also love it if you could rate and review the podcast on Spotify. We would love to hear from you guys. So feel free to say hi in the comments down below. And that's all from us. So pull up a chair as we dive in.
All right. Well, I have a question for you guys. Obviously, we all do, the musical side of worship, and perhaps, there are people who are listening who are sort of interested in what it looks like from a very practical perspective to implement the life of worship, but like to take that, that surrender and that heart and the worshiping the Spirit and truth and bring it to the stage. And obviously there's a spiritual practice, but there's also a practical practice. I'm interested what you guys think about, or what does that look like for you guys in terms of either the spiritual or the practical, like how you guys approach the stage.
Cool. Like, few practical things that I had to learn to do when it came to actually worshipping, because we've talked about performance, not worship before. Or it's worship, not performance, the other way around, sorry. Is if you don't know the songs or you don't practice to the point where you know the songs well enough, it's always going to be a performance because you're worried about the music.
Yeah, sure.
You're worried about how you're going to play it. Like you're worried about what chords are there, what notes am I going to play. You haven't learnt the song, or you've learnt it to the point of where you can kind of wing it on the day, but you still need the words and the chords in front of you, kind of thing. You haven't actually learnt the song to be able to just play it and worship God. So that'd be a big practical thing is, if you find yourself in the worship space or worship team space, or you wanting to get into the worship team, make sure you're practicing.
Yeah.
Make sure you're doing your prep. Make sure you're not leaving things to the last minute, because you're going to find on the day of or night of, when you get to it, it's going to, you're going to be too worried about what's happening musically than to actually worry about worshiping God. And then you're able, and look, I'm someone who's very busy as it is, so it actually is a sacrifice for me to practice.
Yeah, totally.
And so in part of that as well,
another night where you have to go to church, because
that's
churches have a music team practice
the
week.
100%. And the church I go to, we do it every second fortnight. So maybe like once a month, maybe if we're lucky.
Right.
Because they decided to chuck the other music night practice as a connect group, but that's besides the point. But like, an extra night a week or whatever, or an extra night a month that you got to go to, that you got to commit to, which is part of his sacrifice. But also just the normal prep and practice time. For me, that's a massive sacrifice. I could be doing so much other stuff with my time.
Yeah, totally.
Normally it's just my rest and relax time, but I'm having to, I've got to practice that way when it comes to Sunday morning, that I'm rested on. I can actually worship God while still playing an instrument on stage. And I'm not having to worry too much about the ins and outs and the little details, because I've done the prep work. You have to be prepped and you have to practice songs, so that way you can, just focus on the worship.
Yeah.
That'd be my practical tip: is preparation and practice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And what does that look like for your team? So
you were looking at him when you asked that question.
Anyone feel free to answer.
What does it look like for your team?
A standard, I don't know about the team, but for me personally, that prep looks like something up before.
I'm sorry, I used to live with this guy.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But
Called out on national TV as well.
oh my goodness. When I first started coming to this church, I was really inspired by one of our musicians here, who's an amazing guitarist, amazing music director.
Devastated that that wasn't me. It's like, he's an amazing keys player.
I'm also inspired by you. You're very inspired.
Let us get to it.
But essentially,
He's talking about himself.
I'm not talking about myself. I will name drop if you need me to. But essentially,
well, I play guitar.
it's not you. Essentially, what happened was that as I grew, this guitarist challenged me to become better, and I used to play with chord sheets and all of that, and he challenged me to actually learn more theory so that I could play and memorize songs easier and without any musical chord sheets in front of me. And because I'm a guitarist and a vocalist, it actually just clears away that separation that a music stand causes between me and the congregation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one less thing to worry about as well. So learning and practicing to the point where I've memorized songs, or I can figure out how to play songs on the fly. And so essentially, as you practice and as you prepare, you can grow to a point where there'll be times where you can just jump straight in without being prepared, and you can kind of be spontaneous. But it takes a while to get there. And it takes effort, but it's doable. 100% it's doable. But before that, oh my goodness. Anyway, but that looks like practicing the songs. That looks like practicing and practicing and practicing. And
Not
so
just one key either.
Yeah, so I practice in multiple keys, if not all of them, because oftentimes vocalists will come on a Sunday and
I want to hear a different key.
not know what key they want.
Right.
So,
And vocalists, you'll need to practice as well. Get that locked down.
Yeah.
This is a public service announcement for every single vocalist out there. You do not always have a stage screen. Please learn the lyrics.
Spicy. Yeah.
That's so true.
It's so true, though.
So true.
Vocalists come in and they think they've got it easy, and then all of a sudden they're relying on production to be able. I've done production as well.
Chill out.
Yeah.
I'm
Look.
a vocalist too, so I'm feeling all the hits.
Yes. Yeah. I've been there. We've all experienced unpreparedness, and
100%.
there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
Amen.
But the heart of it is, you see in the book of Exodus, right? When people, when God, like ordains like the building of the tabernacle for, the presence of God to come and dwell and be with his people, he sends the, gifts and talents to people, like people become anointed for particular purposes.
Absolutely.
And they do their work excellently, like in the making of the curtains, and in the, they're working with metals, to build this construction, right? People take it seriously because it's for God.
Absolutely.
God is the creator of the universe, and yet he's chosen to come into relationship with us, and to wipe our slate completely clean, for the cost of the price jewel of heaven, right, which is Jesus. So that act, and that person of Christ is worth, the sacrifice of my preparedness. And so, I encourage people to, work on your craft, continue to drill your fundamentals. If you're slow on your scales, practice your scales. Do your arpeggios, practice chord transitions, practice playing with the capo, get those basics down, and then also work on your songs.
Yeah, practice with a click.
Practice with a
click.
if you have a click track at your church, practice with a click. It helps so much. The first time you play with a click track in your ears, it can be very disorienting. I was around when they first introduced click track at my church, and I said, why do we need this? I don't want this. Let's just go back to the way it was. Long term, I've seen that there is a lot of fruit with it. It allows a lot of flexibility. It allows a lot of spontaneity. It allows everyone to sort of relax a little bit and focus on other things.
Back on the click,
and that's useful. Click. Yeah. So it helps it helps the drummers as well.
Yeah, 100%.
From speeding up, slowing down. Sometimes these things sneak in.
Helps the vocalists from speeding up and slowing down.
Right.
Helps everyone from speeding up and slowing down.
Damn, vocalists happy.
And if you're an MD, don't be afraid to call attention to like, hey, watch the click if you feel things beginning to slip.
And
that's
MD,
helpful.
for those who don't know, is a music director.
My MDs at my churches say my bacon more than once.
Right.
You
Like legit,
revealed your church, by the way, so you're just calling people out right now.
No, they've saved my bacon.
Oh, you saved your bacon. Yeah.
Like, it's a positive thing, yeah.
It's a positive thing.
Yeah. MDs say
We don't want any fried pork. Save the bacon.
Says the vegan. Anyway, moving on.
The vegetarian?
Appropriate comment. The other thing I'll say is, right, okay, so you practice your basics, you practice the actual worship for your set, but also as that begins to go on and you find yourself taking less and less time, to practice and all of a sudden you can be prepared for a set in like 10, 15 minutes. Okay, consider pushing yourself, what's something interesting that you could do, something creative, something, that you haven't done before? Are there any new skills that you can, work your way into learning?
Yeah.
Sometimes those things, are in, a lot of stuff that I've only just sort of recently started incorporating musically has been stuff that I've been working on in the background for a couple of years, and it just wasn't up to scratch. And so, but I kept working on it for the joy of it, but also because it's there could be some fruit here. And now, much later on, it's now I have a skill that I can use on a Sunday, and that matters in the sense, and not in the sense that you need to play exceptionally well or play exceptionally cool things for the presence of God, to be felt by people or for anything like that. It's for the wanting to do things excellently, that desire within you. And because we see in the Old Testament that worship was, people, the nation of Israel was actually known for their musical talent. They were known for the excellence. And that was a God glorifying thing, right? Because people were like, wow, look how much effort they put in. Look how, and the glory of the effort put in reflects the glory of the God worship. So, it's worth doing those things. Absolutely. Now, if you mess up, it's that's fine. Some of the big encounter moments I've seen have been, I've just been holding pads and doing basically nothing, or it's come after a set where I've been,
trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
Yeah, and it's just I just feel one step behind, or I'm missing stuff, or my brain's not working the way I want it to. And people are out there encountering God, and that's the end, that's the end goal, that people encounter God, that people who need to be healed through the process of meeting with God can meet with God. That we get the opportunity to meet with God, on our good days and our bad, and also that we get to experience, giving God, what is, I've said it before, what is his due? This is a thing, that all of creation, in a very real sense, I think owes God, it's like that's what he is worthy of. That is what he deserves, right? And desert sort of implies, that that's what I should do then. So yes, that's the practical side of it. Any quick comment on like the sort of the spiritual side of like what it looks like to
absolutely
to prepare?
So this is like super important. Reading your word and actually knowing who you're singing to. I know that a lot of people encounter God in different ways, and if you're more inclined to encounter God through music and worship, like I was, reading your word may become challenging. It might be a bit challenging for you, but actually going in and reading about the God that we're serving and actually getting to know him personally will actually will actually shift the whole thing of worship, because it's now not just a song, it's now a love song or a poem that you're sharing to God, or a hymn or a spiritual song. And the goal with every song in a corporate worship thing should be to exalt, to glorify, to honor, to give adoration and love towards God. And so the more we know about him and the better our relationship is with God, the better the worship that we can give him. Because like, if you don't know a person, like let's say Tom, right? I want to give him a gift, but I don't know him.
You're going to get it wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to get it wrong.
You need to know,
But I could because I know Tom, I know that he really doesn't like gifts or whatever. He may like gifts, I don't know. But he might just like he might like quality time instead. So he might just be like, I don't want gifts.
Just come chill.
Just come hang out.
Just come hang out.
Let's go watch a movie.
Yeah.
And it's like learning more about who God is and actually creating a space for you to not just practice musically the song, but also to practice entering the presence of God through your music.
Yeah,
and actually just sticking on a song.
So that's the practical side as compared to the spiritual side.
Yeah, and so actually let yourself get lost in the presence of God. Because another really important thing as a leader is you can't lead anywhere you haven't been yourself.
Yeah. And I'll say about that, love languages thing that you're referencing. God's love language is surrender and obedience. If you want to love, right? We're always very focused on how other people should love us and how God should love us, and God actually does love you, and he
yes he does. He actually does love you.
Well, I mean, see, you gotta strike the balance, right? Because what I'm gonna say next is like a little bit spicy, but we're so worried about like God loving us that we don't necessarily always think about what does it look like to love God? Like, how does God tell us he wants to be loved? And he tells us, surrender and obedience. So that's what I think what it boils down to. You get there through prayer, you get there through the word, but
yeah, that sounds great. That was a great session.
Having a private and personal time with God is set aside. Yeah, I just got to clarify that it's not just in I come to church. When we do prayer at church, I'm praying there.
It's more private.
Oh, and it's your private personal time with God.
Yeah, where no one is watching, where there's no rewards coming from anyone else.
Place. And I got told this years ago now, when they said, if you do not have the time in the secret place with God consistently, when you get up on stage, all you're doing is making a noise.
It's true. It's true.
All you're doing is people, right? Because you're just getting up there and you're showing up. And if you're not doing it in your own life, but you're trying to lead other people in worship.
It comes across as empty.
Almost. But it's not just about how it comes across to people. It's about God.
Yeah. We want to give our best.
We don't worship for people, we worship for God.
Absolutely.
And I think actually, in my personal experience, it's been those moments of worship and surrender where actually I found myself most satisfied. I think Augustine says, like our hearts are restless until they rest in you. So that's actually, even though it's for God, in the end, it's the thing that satisfies us as well.
Hey, thank you so much for listening, for being part of the conversation. We're so glad that you are here. Hey, if this inspired you, if this encouraged you, we'd love to hear about it. So please leave a comment down below if that's you. We'd love it if you guys could subscribe to the channel and to follow us on Instagram and Spotify. But that's all from us. So we are going to sign off there. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next time.